Hey Cloud Gamers, today I'm having a look at Marvel's Avengers. This time I am looking across maximum settings, Shadow PC, Google Stadia and GeForce NOW all in 4K. The difference here is the maximum settings is using Moonlight on the Shield TV, Shadow PC is using the native app on Shield TV, GeForce NOW is using actually Nvidia games on the Shield TV, and Google Stadia is using the Chromecast Ultra. All of these on a 4K HDR enabled TV, so let's get into it. You can see with the speed test here, Google Stadia is just pipped at the post at the very start here by maximum settings, but very quickly follows along with Shadow PC at just over the 35-second mark. And as we go into the actual load screens, Stadia starts to pull that back. And just to the kind of main title screen there in just under a minute for both Google Stadia and maximum settings. Shadow following at 1 minute 6 there, and GeForce NOW just getting in at 1:10. But what you may notice is that GeForce NOW is actually running at 2.5 times the speed of everything else. You may not notice that here, but you will see it a little bit more apparent on the waiting screen. So Google Stadia has managed to keep that less than 1 minute click to play to the main title screen, but we are going for a speed test all the way to a mission start here. So going into the multiplayer mission for the Avengers initiative, I found that the loading times could vary quite a lot here. You can see Google Stadia has pulled ahead of everyone else. Shadow PC in third, and GeForce NOW, even at 2.5 times, is still loading to the actual war table area for the Avengers initiative. This is a problem with the GeForce NOW version at the moment, that the load times are extremely long. I'm sure that this is just because they are testing out the rigs, and this is why they don't announce the new games until the Thursday. You see it's finally hit the Avengers initiative war table area there. But all in all, in mission start, Google Stadia has then hit the start at 2:31 and maximum settings at 2:33, so very close behind Google Stadia there. And don't forget that maximum settings 2080 is running a very high spec machine there. Shadow PC finally getting to that mission start then at 2:51. So all three under 3 minutes. GeForce NOW taking over 7 minutes then to do the same. Hope they get this fixed for their Thursday release announcement, because it is a little bit disappointing. As we go to the mission start then, we are synced across all four here. And Google Stadia contrast is looking a little bit off here. I'm not quite sure why. On my screen it looked just as vibrant as the others. So I'm not sure if the way that this is being recorded has taken the contrast out a little bit, but looking at them all side by side in this cutscene, it is very close to cool. As we are jumping around here on the start area, you can see that there is a little bit of lag on the Shadow PC, it's a little bit jerky. Google Stadia, I forgot to mention, is on the high resolution setting here, but it is appearing very smooth and fluid in its movement. Maximum settings, a little bit of stutter there. So the Moonlight client struggling a little bit with the fast movement. GeForce NOW and Google Stadia looking very smooth now. So we're going to go into some single gameplay of 4K, starting with GeForce NOW. So this is GeForce NOW, but it's called Nvidia Games on Shield TV. And it doesn't appear that the AI upscaling is in effect yet for Nvidia Games. However, it's still looking really good at 4K, considering it is an upscale 1080 image. It plays extremely smoothly. It's just those loading times are a little bit of a letdown right now. You can see here, not an issue with the actual gameplay, and still looking very good. can see a little bit of fuzziness around the character, especially as I go into the embiggen mode. But the explosion's looking pretty clear there. And just a little bit of gameplay stutter. For some reason the Steam overlay for the frames per second doesn't show on the Nvidia games. So that would be a good tell of the frames per second here. But I'm saying it would probably be close to 30, pushing that 60 occasionally. As we move over to Google Stadia, again, I'm not sure why it's coming up a little bit dull here. I can assure you that on my TV it did not look like this, or not as dull as this. So it must be that the HDR mode is doing something different on the TV than it did for my recording box. So putting that aside, this does look like an upscaled image similar to GeForce NOW. But again, it's very fluid. There's just a little bit more motion blur around the character. Even though motion blur is kind of disabled, this seems to be an effect to kind of disguise some of that quality in my book. And as a lot starts happening, we do see a little bit of frame drop. And that little bit of blurriness around the character again, especially around the hair there. But still extremely playable and actually a very fun experience on Stadia, mainly because of those load times. As we switch over to Shadow PC then, again, looking very smooth, little bit of blurriness around the character still, but the frames per second did hold quite nicely here. You can see even with all this going on, Shadow is holding over 50 frames per second. And I really didn't have an issue playing on Shadow, except for the Shield TV messes with the PS4 controller mapping for some reason, and the kind of touchpad button and the select button aren't mapped on the Shield TV, so I was unable to kind of get into the character menus. And this was a problem also on the Nvidia game side. So PS4 controller is quite versatile, but it does seem like everything expects it to be an Xbox One controller. So if you are looking for a universal controller, definitely go for the Xbox One controller, or pick up the Shield TV controller, which would probably map a lot better. Finally switching over to the maximum settings 2080 here. Again, looking pretty much as smooth as the Shield TV there, if not a little bit crisper. And holding a little bit higher on the frames per second, where we're seeing 60 to 70 frames in those big battles, versus the 50 there of the Shadow PC. Bearing in mind that this is a rig in Canada versus one in Paris, there really isn't a lot of difference in the latency, except for the Moonlight client does map the PS4 controller perfectly. And also you don't need a Bluetooth mouse to control Shadow PC. Moonlight does have a controller mouse option, which you can toggle while on desktop, which makes it a lot easier. Moonlight and Shield TV work very well together, and as we go back side by side, you can see those differences a little bit more clearly, and actually Shadow PC and maximum settings are pretty much on par here. I'd say that the quality on Google Stadia and GeForce NOW is pretty similar as well, but I do feel like maximum settings and Shadow PC are a little bit crisper overall and a bit smoother gameplay. You can see that there is a lot going on here, and the frames per second on both Shadow PC and maximum settings do stay up over the 60 mark most of the time. Whereas Google Stadia does seem to drop that frame rate, so I did not have great luck with Google Stadia and the high frame rate mode. It looked extremely blurry to me. So personally I would rather it look a little bit better and just deal with a few frame drops. But there has been reports that high frame rate has looked just as good, and obviously you don't get those issues with Google Stadia. I have got dynamic resolution disabled across the board here, apart from Google Stadia, which is on the high resolution setting. So you would not see that dynamic resolution in effect, which is what the higher frame rate mode is on Google Stadia. All in all, I think it's going to be a personal preference about which one you play on. If I was going to pick which to play on, I would probably choose GeForce NOW for the convenience, if it wasn't for those loading times, but because of those loading times I will most likely be playing on Shadow or maximum settings. Most likely maximum settings, as Moonlight maps the PS4 controller, whereas Shadow PC doesn't. And unfortunately, because I have bought it on Steam, I cannot take that progress over to Google Stadia, so even if I did purchase it there, I would have to start again. But if you are looking to pick this up on Google Stadia, it is definitely a good option, and just try both those high frame rate and high resolution modes to see which one fits your play best. Thanks for watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, stay up to date with all the latest across all cloud gaming platforms, and I will see you next time.